Okay, it is 1 p.m. We'll call to order this meeting of the California Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board for Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. This is a hybrid meeting with member Ang participating from LA County and the other 4 board members here in person in Sacramento. Let's do a roll call of the members. Item number 1 on our agenda. The chair is present. Vice Chair Allen.
Here.
Member Ang.
Here.
Member Ken Monning.
Here.
Member Wachowski.
Here.
Please show all members present. We'll move now to approval of the minutes from our December 15th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, it's been moved that we adopt the minutes from December 15, 2022. We will, well, because we are doing it hybrid, we'll still do a roll call vote. The chair votes aye. Vice Chair Allen.
Aye.
Member Ang.
Aye.
Member Kent Monning.
Aye.
And Member Wachowski.
Not voting since I didn't participate in the December meeting.
Understandable. Thank you, Bob. Moving now to item number 3, which is the chair's report. I've got several brief items today. First of all, I always like to remind viewers, Bob, I do this every month, that most of the work of the board, as you'll find out, is done between board meetings. The board meetings themselves are relatively brief, usually just about an hour in length. Sometimes we have much longer closed sessions, but normally they're fairly short. But a good deal, hours and hours of work is done between the board meetings. And in this last month, since our last board meeting, the board members have resolved 1,028 cases. So congratulations. That's a very great pace. And want to thank Becky Bach and the board for pushing that all through and not only resolving things quickly, but fairly. Next, to any viewers, I want to welcome you to our newest board member, Bob Wachowski. He is an appointee of the President Pro Tem of the Senate and has been a senator and an assembly member and a city council member, and I'm sure all sorts of other things. Third announcement, we have a new vice chair who is an old vice chair. Michael Allen is replacing Dan Reeves. This is his first meeting back in the vice chair's role, but Michael served in the vice chair's role, at least for my first several years on the board and maybe before that. So welcome to
Thank
that new
you.
capacity.
It's hard being a heartbeat away, but I'll manage.
You just wake up and check the obituaries, and if I'm not in it. Item number 4 is a more serious item, and that is a change of date. Our next board meeting is scheduled for February 15th. A couple of members have asked if we can look at possibly changing that date to either February 8th, which is the Wednesday before, or February 22nd, which is the Wednesday after. Not critical that we do that, but it is the preference of at least a couple members. So if it works for the other board members, we need to find out what is your better date between the two. If they're both good, that's great. And Mara Luz will contact you to poll the board. You don't have to tell us now, but just once we're done with the meeting, do check your calendars and see which, if either or both of those dates are good. And if not, we would stick with the 15th. Last announcement for today has to do with NAUIAP, the National Association of Unemployment Insurance Appeals Professionals. NAUIAP is having a webinar, their first webinar really since COVID. They've been pretty much like a lot of organizations, kind of in suspended animation over the period of COVID. And they're coming back out in a big way starting on February 14th of all days, Valentine's Day. There will be a webinar from 11 o'clock a.m. until 12:30 that day. And the webinar's title is Dealing with People You Can't Stand. So it's a provocative title, but it is just about how to get along with people, how to make sure people are accomplishing what they need to accomplish, even if there's some interpersonal issues. So that is on, and the author is a very well-renowned author. All board members, and in fact, all staff will be getting an email about this, and it will include a save the date and probably a link either there. You'll have to respond, and then you'll get a link to attend. So look forward to that coming in the email to you in the next couple of days. So that is all for the chair's report. We move now to item number 4 on the agenda, board members report. Vice Chair Allen.
Well, like I do at almost every meeting, I just want to thank all levels of staff of the organization, management, our support staff, our great judges at the field and appellate level. And that, I also wanted to kind of mark this occasion while letting folks know that this is the 10th anniversary of my service on the board. And I know that there was a brief hiatus where there was a couple of weeks where I was not on the board. Bob Silva tried to get me off the payroll as rapidly as possible, but was not successful. But it's been a great honor serving, and I'm also it's also been a very interesting perspective for me because I came in with the aftermath of the Great Recession, where we were swamped out of compliance with the Department of Labor because of the hundreds of thousands of cases that we were dealing with, and having to continually hire to try to catch up with what happened, and then having to revisit it again with the pandemic. And so I just want to acknowledge that this not only have we been able to cope with the crisis of the Great Recession, but with the pandemic, but it's also an organization that's always trying to improve itself, modernize. And I've seen that through the 10 years I've been here. There's always attempt to get better and to basically not get stagnant and really look for areas of improvement. And I attribute that to past board chairs and our present board chair, the staff, and all the board members that I've served with over the years. And so I just considered myself very fortunate to be able to serve the people of California for as long as I have. And so that's my report.
Thank you, Michael. People of California are fortunate to have had you in this position. Moving now to board report by Member Ang. Mike?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to commend Vice Chair Allen for his 10th anniversary. I've enjoyed serving with you. I know that the newsletters have been amazing, the one that you were in charge of, and appreciate the camaraderie on the board and the assistance that you render on all of the cases whenever I've had the pleasure of being a co-panelist with you. Secondly, I wanted to welcome our newest member, former Senator, former Assembly Member Bob Wachowski, who I've served with, I believe, in the last 2 years of my tenure in the Assembly. I know that in a previous life, you were an attorney, I think, in the specializing in bankruptcy. And I think that your sensitivity and your experience and your empathy for those individuals and companies that have great needs and are lost for resources are really going to do you very well. So I look forward to serving with you in the years to come. I also note that I believe that I have a connection with the legislature with every person on the panel, either yourself or a relative, and I think that's will also I'm very much appreciative for those of you that have chosen public service, and you are all amazing role models for me. And so I believe that finishes my report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike. I'm moving on now to Member Kent Monning.
Thank you, Chair Block. I just wanted to start by also welcoming Member Wachowski. I'm very much looking forward to working with you. We are neighbors geographically, so maybe even some carpooling in the future, but looking forward to having you and bringing your vast experience to the board. So welcome. And then also to Vice Chair Allen, congratulations on your 10-year mark here. I am very lucky to have you as a colleague and a mentor, and I really appreciate everything that you bring to your work here. So congrats. And then just brief, no report, but just a brief shout out and thanks to Gavin Powell. This relates to the CAMS project, but Gavin came up with, I think, an idea that has made my use of CAMS it has revolutionized it. So anyone who wants to use our new program to review an entire administrative record, Gavin's idea that we are using now makes that so much easier, and I feel like I can really do my job the way that I do it best. And I really appreciate his work doing that, and then of course everyone in the IT department who helped support that and made that come to life. It's been very, very helpful as CAMS is being rolled out and constantly being worked on. And then broader than that, just everyone who is still working so hard on CAMS. It is a juggernaut of a system and it does so much for us, but obviously requires a lot of work and tinkering. And I really appreciate everyone who continues to dedicate so much time to that. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Moving now to our newest member, Member Wajkowski.
Well, hello, everybody. I've been here 10 days since I was sworn in, so this is my 10th day. I look forward, as Board Member Ng was talking about, all of us are involved in public service, and this is simply the next chapter for me in providing public service. And you look at the history of not only all the board members that are here now, but Vice President Kamala Harris, Pro Tem Robert Roberti, my predecessor in the Senate, Ellen Corbett. There's a lot of people that get to sit in these seats and provide that meaningful and necessary appellate work in the unemployment arena. I can't say enough about the warmth that people have extended to me on the staff, particularly Supervising Administrative Law Judge Bach, in orientating me. For the public, I do have 8 training sessions that are about 3 hours long, plus variety of other things in order to get up to schedule or up to speed on taking the cases and dealing with that. And I look forward to my first session on the new CAMS program and learning that yet another computer program. But I'm glad to be part of the team.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Okay, we now move on to item number 5 on our agenda, which is set aside for public comment. Do any members of the public wish to address the board? We have any members of the public with their hands up asking to address the board?
Yes, sir. We do have one hand raised. Richard Miller, please introduce
Hearing
yourself.
none. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Richard Miller is a attendee to speak to the board.
Okay, thank you. Since we do have a member of the public wishes to address the board, I'll go briefly over the rules of public comment. First of all, public comment is limited to 5 minutes. Secondly, this is a period of time for comment, not dialogue with the board, not questions and answers. Merely you make your comment. If you would like to receive a response after the fact from staff, please use the contact phone number or email that's on today's agenda to ask your follow-up question, and staff will, if appropriate, respond. With that, let me set the timer here. We have 5 minutes. Mr. Miller, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was interesting that you're going to be attending a webinar on dealing with people you can't stand. I probably fit that category for Judge Kutry, Rob Silva, and most of the board due to my comments and concerns about how the board has become aware of my 6 years or 5+ years of service as an ALJ with the state of California, and how Rob Silva has taken actions in 2018 to prevent my reemployment. And these were aimed particularly at me. I've made the board aware of the other activities, including the failure to follow the merit system, and personally deciding by Judge Kutry that I'm not to return to the CUIAB under any circumstances, and Michael Allen being simply satisfied when made inquiry that I had some performance issues. With that knowledge and notice, I think, and I've mentioned this before, as attorneys, as judges, and as leaders of the agency, your duty first to investigate and put this agency back on the road of following its appropriate merit system and other provisions in the hiring and treatment of personnel. And that maybe you'll learn, I hope, under dealing with people you can't stand, that the best way is to follow the law. I found, as I was an ALG, giving benefits to someone I personally found unpleasant, was difficult, as well as denying benefits to those who were very sympathetic, also difficult. Now, as you go forward and you have notice and knowledge of some of the wayward activities of the board and of the ALJ, the chief ALJ, in not following the merit system, when you take no action to correct that and hire over 100 other ALJs above me without even giving me an interview, you seem to be more than aware of, but perhaps complicit in not taking retro or activity to remedy this and get the board and the agency back on course. With that in mind, I hope that somehow you can get back to the merit system. Somehow you can find a way of undoing the wrongs that have been done that you have knowledge of, and do so with a recognition that that's your duty and responsibility. And failure to do so is also not a feather in your cap. I welcome the new board member. He'll probably hear my name many times, be filled in by other board members as to my complaints and the lack of action or activity, and the failure to believe that the training judge could somehow rehabilitate me to ever be an ALJ again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. That concludes our public comment for today. We move on now to item number 6 on our agenda, a report by Michael Kutry, the Chief ALJ and Executive Director. Mike?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Block and board members. Member Wachowski, welcome to the board. I haven't set up our training sessions yet, but I hope to keep them a little less significant than Judge Box. But it's been a pleasure working with you so far, and I look forward to continuing that. On to some field updates. The field offices resolved 25,800 cases in December, an increase of over 2,000 cases since the November month. Importantly, incoming monthly appeals decreased from November to December. We've been measuring by our pre-pandemic monthly workload, and we've dipped down to about 44% over pre-pandemic levels, compared to 77% of normal in December. This is one signal that the EDD determinations addressing eligibility going back to 2021 are resolved, at least one major bucket of their deferred workload. So we're in discussions with EDD now about its remaining deferred workload and how that would likely impact appeals coming to the CUIAB over the next 6-month timeframe. But a brief reprieve is likely what it is, but nonetheless, we're taking advantage of it and onboarding as many new judges as we can to take advantage of that momentum. I'm still facing an historic appeals backlog. CUIAB continues to calendar its oldest appeals first. As a result, 30 and 45-day time lapse are distant horizon for us to reach. They remain in the single digits. Our average case age climbed from 118 days in November to 125 days in December. That is a result of us calendaring the oldest cases first, but it's also a result of the sustained high workload over the last 6 to 12 months that we've received from the EDD. I will note that we remain significantly ahead of the national case age average, which has risen to 237 days. At the last meeting, I discussed additional ALJ recruitments to meet that ongoing appeal backlog and to best position the CUIAB for any economic downturn that occurs in 2023. We've been targeting those field offices the most in need of ALJs, and very successfully. We have approximately 22 as of today, and I'll let Mr. Silva update that if needed, that are either in the hiring, training, or already onboarded stage. So the supervising ALJ, Katrina Morrison from the San Diego office, is training all of the new judges. Her first cohort of 10 was trained and has been onboarded as of mid-December and are now hearing cases in their respective offices. Another cohort of 6 judges is being trained right now, and they should finish their initial training this week. Another is being scheduled, another 6 to 10 is being scheduled for March, and that will be, if I'm not mistaken, the 15th training cohort since March of 2020. We continue to fulfill this recruitment. Our goal and approval was for 30 ALJs, and we're pretty confident at this point we'll meet that goal. Over the holiday season, we anticipated significant impacts from COVID based on national projections. We were remarkably successful in that regard, and we've experienced a pretty marked dip in our office closures and positive cases in the last month. Very happy to report that. In the last several weeks, we've anticipated the maximum impact from the storms that have been ravaging California. Again, we've been incredibly lucky in that the vast majority of our employees were unaffected, and our offices did not sustain any prolonged power outages or closures. Another major item that we've been discussing over the last year plus is the CAM system. The board is now working in the CAM system, and 4 field offices remain standing up in that system: Fresno, Oxnard, Orange County, and San Jose. As we discussed at the last meeting, the rollout to the next office, San Diego, was paused because of system capacity issues that needed to be addressed before we roll out a big office like San Diego is. So that is still the next office to be scheduled. We've been meeting regularly to plan that stand-up effort, which takes about a month for a large office like that. And it looks like end of February, early March will be the rollout to San Diego. CIO Willoughby will give you additional updates on the CAM system if mine aren't up to the hour accurate. I am happy to report that there were no security events for my board report today since the last meeting. And so that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions the members may have.
Thank you, Mike. And since we're in a hybrid meeting now, what I'll be doing is asking board members who are here in Sacramento if they have any questions or comments to just indicate by raising their hand or just letting me know, and then they'll go. And then at the end, I'll come to Member Eng if he has anything additional. And Mike, don't feel you need to, but that's one way to handle this. And if everybody has questions or comments, that's fine. But in case you don't, we don't need to go around the room every time. So first, for Chief Judge Kutry, any comments or questions? Member Kemaning.
Thank you. Just briefly, I just wanted to commend all of the FOALJs and support staff for resolving almost 26,000 cases in December. December is a time of holidays and vacations, so that number is incredibly impressive. So I just wanted to commend everyone on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Member Eng, any comments or questions?
Yes, I have a comment. First of all, Chief Kutry, thanks again for always being available before board meetings to answer questions and take care of issues. As we know, I think in the last report, EDD attempted to go back to the applicants for PUA that were inadvertently either denied or inadvertently were not encouraged to apply. Has that had an impact on our caseload by any chance?
No, I've met with EDD since that report came out in the national news media. There was a clarification of some of the PUA eligibility requirements, which could or was anticipated to result in a slight increase in old claims being approved. So far, that tally is not in from EDD, but it does not appear to be a sizable group of cases that may end up in appeals. And I'll update you if that changes, but that's part of our monthly dialogue with EDD to see if we should be expecting additional work from that. So far, no.
Okay, thank you, Chief Kutry. My second question relates to our staffing recruitment. And if that's a question for Chief Silva, I can defer or I can
let's wait for Chief Silva for that question.
Okay, great. My final comment is that I wanted to say that kudos to you and the team for the CAMS rollout. Can you indicate any kind of potential timeline where all of our cases will be in CAMS?
Yeah, our original estimate was the end of this fiscal year. That would be about July 1st. It's probably going to be later in the summer that they're all online. But we're still sticking with that timeline that will hopefully all be in CAMS, and we'll be able to retire our legacy system by late summer, early fall.
Okay, I never thought I would be saying this, but I actually have enjoyed CAMS as a new challenge, and have actually found that I can access documents a little bit more systematically. And so I want to thank you and the entire CAMS crew, Chief Willoughby, and all the other people that have made it possible, and also the training that Becky has provided, and also to my colleagues who have navigated very, very well to the new system. Thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Mike Kutry. We move on now to item number 7 on our agenda, report by Becky Bach, our supervising administrative law judge for appellate operations.
Good afternoon. I'm going to go over the second level review numbers. And to meet the Department of Labor requirements, we're to close 50% of our cases in 45 days. And for the month of December, we closed 58.2% of our cases within 45 days. So that was excellent. Moving our year total to 39.7%. And we are to close 80% of our cases within 75 days. For the month of December, we closed 91.2% of our cases within 75 days. And so that leaves our year numbers for that time limit at 92.4%. So very good there too. And our case aging, the Department of Labor case aging standard is 40 days. We're currently, at the end of December, we were at 46.6, just slightly over that. Expect that will be going down before the next board meeting. So that's my report.
Thank you, Becky. Good numbers and getting better. Any questions or comments among those who are here in person for Becky? Seeing none. Member Eng, any questions for Becky Bach?
Yes, maybe it's the security of not being there that I feel liberated to ask all these questions. But first of all, Becky, Judge Bach, I wanted to thank you for the training at the last meeting. That 1 hour proved to be very, very, very helpful. And I found that the system, and thanks to my colleague Laura and other colleagues who have helped perfect the system a little bit more, I want to give a shout out. And I know that every day that I look at CAMS, I know that's a result of some incremental improvement over the last hour or the last day. So I want to thank you for that. And I found it actually becoming a little bit easier. Lastly, I wanted to give a shout out. I believe that there has been one appellate office judge that I see has made the most comments. And if you would convey my appreciation to that judge for, I believe, taking the first wave of CAMS cases. I've been very impressed with that judge and her ability to handle the interaction between the board members and herself. And I know that there are other AOs coming on board because I see that too. And here's my question. At what point do you feel that we will have all of the AOs handling the CAMS cases? Will it be at the same time we do them all in CAMS, or are they going to be on board earlier?
Right. So I will happily give that lovely shout out to Judge Wang. She'll be very appreciative. As far as the moving the judges from legacy system onto CAMS, we now have 3 judges that are 100% on CAMS. You'll start seeing more decisions from a variety of folks. And as far as moving the others, I'm sort of waiting until some of the field offices, as the field offices go on, then the CAMS case increases, and we have to balance one location or the other. So I think it will be systematically over the next few months to approximately the time as the last field office becomes a CAMS field office will be the last AO, Appellate Operations Administrative Law Judge, will be fully on board to CAMS, give or take.
Thank you, Judge Bach. I have nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Becky. Moving on now, item number 8 on our agenda, report from our Chief Information Officer, Jeff Willoughby. Jeff?
Good afternoon, Chair Block and members of the board. Happy New Year from the IT staff and welcome to our new board member, Wachowski. We have been hard at work trying to resolve our largest challenges in CAMS since we last chatted. And I have some more news to share. As a reminder from our last meeting, and mentioned by Chief Kuchi, our CAMS rollout, due to some emergent issues with case scheduling and document generation, have been getting worked on. Both of these issues seem to be correlated with the inventory of cases that come to us when we bring a new office online. So they have manifested slowly and have really come to a head for us. So good news. One of our largest issues was scheduling of cases. It was taking on some days up to 27 hours to schedule a day's worth of cases in the system. So we have found that, we have solved it, and now automated scheduling is happening in the system, and it seems like it's about at a 90% fill rate, which allows for some outliers and manual scheduling to happen by our calendar clerks. That's really good news. We are still refining the change to document generation, and document generation is everything that we communicate out via mail to our appellants and to EDD. So we have to get these documents out in a timely fashion, and that happens to be something that we believe we have a solution to, but it's, I'll say, not fully baked yet. We met with the business, we demonstrated what we had as a solution, and they requested another set of improvements to that. We're working on those. We hope to have the vast majority of those completed by next week in time for our scheduled San Diego rollout. So we're really appreciative of both the support we're getting, obviously, from the board, from AO, and from the field, and our subject matter experts. It's critical to us to get that feedback so that we can deliver an ever-improving product. It's no longer a project, it's a product, to the user base. So thank you for your feedback. We have extensive lists of requested enhancements that we will be working on. So we want to make sure that we get the two largest issues that we have in front of us handled and working well for the organization, and we'll be doing that before we roll out our larger offices, including San Diego. Thank you for your support in that, and we know that this is going to end up making the system much more solid in the long run. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Jefferson. Questions or comments among board members for President Sacramento? Vice Chair Allen.
So my question goes back to when we started implementing CAMS, there was the talk about having the public's ability to be able to access their cases, see where it is in the process, and also having kiosks for folks who don't have computers or online capability. So where are we with that?
So the online portal for folks who have cases in the offices that CAMS is present in can, in fact, go in and look at the documents in their cases, and they can submit action requests and have, if not a live dialogue, at least an interactivity with the organization that was not available to them easily or as easily in the past. In terms of the kiosk, we're prepared to handle folks who come in person and need to have a tablet in this case so that they can make that portal identity for themselves and look at their case. So we have that lever to pull. We've have not had a lot of people in person making that request to date, but we're ready for it when it happens.
So just a follow-up question. So when we have this capability with the tablets and all that, will there be something kind of posted in offices to make people who do come to the offices aware that there is this capability if they don't have a computer system at home or?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. No other questions from in-person members? Member Ng.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, one of the things, Chief Willoughby, that I've noticed about CAMS is that in many of the categories that we click on, there's the name of a staff person. And that has just really opened my eyes to the large number of people that take great care and spend a lot of time to prepare those documents for us to click on in a couple of minutes to read them. That probably took them, several minutes to several hours to prepare. And as Vice Chair Allen always says in his report, giving a great deserving shout out to people. This actually helps see the names of those people that prepare those documents. Finally, a kind of a follow-up to Vice Chair Allen's comment about the people that participate. Now, I noticed that every time there's a new rollout for every, in the private sector at least, consumers are asked to participate in the survey of how we did and how the system can be improved. I don't expect that, but how do we capture or solicit comments by the public to make sure that, and they're really the ones that I think count in this, not so much our access to the system, because we can call up and ask for technical assistance, anytime we get stuck. So again, what are we doing, or what avenues available to the consumer who accesses our system?
So we don't have an instrument created today that would directly go out to an appellant, for instance, who had used the public portal. That's not to say that we couldn't develop one. We're still sort of in our infancy on this, and we're taking ad hoc comments as they come in, but we haven't gone out proactively and looked to get feedback from those portal users as yet. We have received some feedback on the portal from folks who found it either wanting or amazing. And most people actually really are appreciative of the fact that they have this avenue to approach us now. So we can definitely look at developing a more proactive instrument to go out to folks, though, or at least a sampling thereof.
I appreciate that. And again, soliciting positive comments as well as otherwise. And the only reason I say that is because there's probably not a panelist or board member here that hasn't seen the frustration of claimants, employers or employees or businesses that have had issues with EDD. And I think at some point we may want to have a link that says that if you have had any issues, click on here, right? And maybe too early. We may not have the staff to monitor that, but I would strongly encourage that as we get going, because I think that would be helpful to us to find out how the impact is on the public. So that's my last comment. Nothing further. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you for that comment, Mike. And thank you, Jefferson. Moving now to item number 9 on our agenda, the last report of the day from Rob Silva, our Chief of Administrative Services. Rob.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Block and board members. On behalf of Administrative Services, welcome Member Wykowski as well to the board. I'll start off with a hiring update. As Chief Kutry mentioned, we did the cohort for 10 ALJs that ended in mid-December. 6 more are in the current cohort, and we have 6 more with start dates in early February to get us to 22 total. We're also close to offers of employment for an additional 4, and our ultimate goal is to get to 30 with this administrative law judge recruitment. During this phase, we've only had 1 ALJ retire, so that's a great boon to bring in what would essentially be a new balance of 29 additions. Moving on to support staff, since the last board meeting, we've hired 4 support staff, and we have offer of employment pending with the 5th. We have 17 support staff recruitments currently pending over 8 of our field offices. I mentioned last month that for calendar year 2022, all of our support staff hires essentially mirrored what ended up being the attrition for support staff in 2022. So with that said, we've planted the seed with field operations management to the extent possible, sort of aim high for support recruitments, understanding that there will most likely be attritions experienced in these classifications. easier said than done. They still have the balance of the CAMS rollout and higher workload, but we've asked them to really focus on over recruiting for support positions if they can. A COVID-19 update. So in the 5 weeks since the last board meeting, we have had 12 cases here at CUIAB reported of COVID-19. That's a decrease from the 15 positive cases in the 5 weeks preceding the previous board meeting. And we had no office closures during the last 5 weeks for reasons of COVID-19. The supplemental paid sick leave program for COVID-19 ended on December 31st, but the administration did extend it into the beginning of January for anybody that was utilizing it as of December 31st, and their specific qualifying condition continued into early January. So that extension impacted a handful of our employees. Moving on to the IT cost reporting, I touched on it last board meeting, that it's our annual drill that we do for the California Department of Technology, in which we're required to summarize and categorize all of our information technology costs for the 2021-22 fiscal year, as well as all of those categorized projections for the current 22-23 fiscal year. I want to thank Jefferson's Shop for assisting me with the data gathering for this budget project. I submitted the report to IT management last week for final review, so we're way ahead of the submission deadline, which is February 1st. And lastly, a budget update. Every February, we issue a budget call letter to begin our budget cycle here at CUIB for the upcoming state fiscal year. We reached out to management of all 18 of our cost centers, provide them with the opportunity to request personnel for their offices, contracts for vendor services, furniture, equipment, training needs for staff. All of the offices are given a 4-week period to submit those requests. Once the requests are submitted, they're consolidated and vetted for approval. For approved OE&E items such as furniture and IT equipment, non-IT equipment, we then review the current fiscal year spending projections to determine whether some of the items could be moved forward and purchased during the current fiscal year before the applicable purchasing deadlines occur. Since the inception of the state's their global FisCal system and the accompanying need to input data into that system, the fiscal purchasing deadline keeps creeping up earlier every single fiscal year. This year's deadlines for IT purchases would be March 17th, and for non-IT items would be April 19th. For this reason, we actually moved up our internal budgeting process this year, and we released the budget requests last Thursday, January 12th, to all of our offices. So it's about 3 weeks ahead of the typical schedule. The submission deadline for field operations cost center will be February 14th. The submission deadline for the 5 remaining cost centers is February 16th. This timing will afford us the opportunity to meet the aforementioned fiscal deadlines if it is determined that we will have affordable OE&E space to purchase items in the current fiscal year instead of waiting for July 1st. And that's my report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Rob. Any questions or comments for Director Silva? Mike Allen.
Director Silva, you've heard this from me almost so many times and every year, but I'm going to bring it up again. And it's not because you're not doing it, but, I've been very fortunate in my life. I've worked with a ton of public agencies, organizations, and private sector organizations. And our organization is very peculiar in the sense that it expands dramatically during times of crisis, and then it contracts. As things get better in the rest of the world, this agency contracts. And so, to the degree possible, it doesn't have to be you personally, although I know you've been involved in this, but the more for all the levels of management to get the staff involved in the budget and what they need in terms of supplies, equipment. I have found that it does wonders for morale for organizations that you make a special effort to reach all levels of the organization so they feel a part of the budget building process. And I only emphasize this because I've seen the difference between organizations that do it and those that don't. Because when you start contracting, that's when a lot of people start questioning the decisions that are made. So the more the people participate in the decisions, understand why they're made, the better for the organization. And thank you for listening to me.
But thank you, and as we've discussed before, that is our intention with this 4-week process with all management from all branches to get them involved in preparing their offices.
We have a great agency and we have great morale under really difficult circumstances right now. And I'm just proud of it. And I just want us to be able to feel that we value everyone in this organization's opinion and work that they do for the public. That's all.
Any other questions or comments for Chief Silva?
I have a very basic question. Could you please tell me what a cost center is?
I'm sorry. I wanted to say a branch, but they're not technically a branch. So field operations is a branch, and we have 11 field offices, all of which are cost centers. We also have the Office of Tax Petitions and the Regional Support Unit. So a total of 13 cost centers make up the one branch of field operations.
Thank you. So each of those cost centers is getting,
Yeah, every single one of our Office of
Wonderful.
Appeals and the other two, and the other 5 would be the Executive Administrative Services, Information Technology, and the Chief's Office.
thank you for the explanation.
You're welcome.
Laura? Member Eng, questions for Member Silva?
Chief Silver.
Yes, thank you, Chief Silva, for the work that you do. It's all encompassing. I just had a quick question. Can you clarify your comment about the staff members that have been hired? New staff members are the same staff members that account for the attrition? Did I get that wrong?
What I mentioned was, at last board meeting, I reported, since we were nearing the end of the calendar year, I went back and looked at all of the support staff attrition we experienced in 2022, and it was essentially the same amount of employees that we hired support staff-wise in 2022. So in the 5 weeks that have happened since the last board meeting, we have hired 4. We had an attrition of 1 position, which, that's small sample size, but even with that trending upwards as far as staff retention, we made sure to reach out to all the cost center management to let them know to err on the side of requesting and hiring more support staff employees, time allowing, explaining to them that they are going to experience attrition in these classes. Because it's difficult, for instance, the Pasadena office doesn't necessarily know how many staff members the Fresno Office of Appeals is losing. So try to provide the global picture to them to make sure that they make as many requests as possible to get staff hired and trained, because they unfortunately are most likely going to experience attrition as well.
Okay, so just to clarify, the people that are hired are not necessarily the same people that retire or quit. You're saying the number perhaps reflect the same. Okay,
Correct.
thank you. My final question has to do with the governor's budget. As you know, it's a moving target and subject to the legislature. Is there anything that you've seen in the last couple of weeks or so that indicates that there would be a negative impact to our agency based on the projected $22 or so billion deficit this coming year?
We have not seen anything yet. We don't expect to until probably about mid-March in preparation for the May revise.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chief Silva. If there are no other questions or comments from the board at this time, it looks like we've completed our open session agenda. I'll turn to our Chief Counsel, Mark Gussam. Any closed session items?
Thank you, Chair Block. There are no closed session items today.
Okay, since we have nothing for closed session today and since we've completed the open session items, if there's nothing else, we'll declare this meeting adjourned.